Another day, another episode of Leading Our Adventures, your Venturing BSA podcast. Welcome and thank you for joining. I'm your host, Hannah Todd, and I'm currently serving as the Vice President of Program for the National Venturing Officers Association. Program, I love program. It's the best thing ever. There's so much things that you can do and so much joy to be had. Today, I'm joined by our special guest, Logan Kirsteins. Today, we will be talking about a youth's experience as VP of Program for his crew and how that prepared him for the future, both in his unit and in life. Welcome, Logan. Would you like to introduce yourself? What inspired you to get involved with Boy Scouts, and how did you first become interested?
So I joined Boy Scouts, specifically venturing, back in November of 2020. And at the time, COVID-19 was very rampant. It left me kind of stuck inside, playing a lot of video games and not engaging in more outdoor activities or with people in general. So when a fellow student in my yearbook class invited me, was like, "Hey man, you want to go to this venture crew meeting?" I was like, "Sure, I got nothing else going on." And the rest was really history. I really took to it and enjoyed it.
History indeed. I guess at some point you ended up being elected vice president of program. Can you tell us about kind of your experience and what are some challenges that you faced in the role? How did you overcome them?
Yeah, definitely. So one of my jobs as the VP of program, at least for my crew, was preparing an activity before each meeting, something that we would be doing, keep us engaged. However, at the time of me being VP of program, I was also the editor of my yearbook. So this took up a very large portion of my freedom. I commonly struggled juggling the two, maintaining a strong VP of program while also maintaining a strong yearbook editor. And it caused me to do a really poor job at both of them combined. One of the most helpful things I did was going through the goal setting and time management courses that venturing offers throughout the rank advancement process. I quickly realized that if I created a week schedule and a to-do list, I was able to organize both my work and my jobs to the best of my ability. It made it easier to maintain both a strong venturing vice president of program as well as a yearbook editor. And overall, the experience really taught me the importance of planning and preparing, to not bite off more than I can chew, and to focus on the jobs I have, not taking on a ton of new side things as well.
I see. Do you just use a plain sheet of paper or a calendar for your? I know the training talks about a few different options for stationery. What's your favorite? Do you do it online?
So it's a mix of two. I have a Google Calendar, and that's how I keep track of dates and important events coming up, as well as like notifications of, hey, you need to be driving there right now kind of thing, which I think is pretty cool. But I also have a Google Doc I've titled Brain Dump, and I just put everything on there. College applications, schoolwork, scouting, planning meetings, everything in life in general, I put on that document. That way I can access it both from my computer and my phone. And I can see everything I'm working on.
So brained up like a to-do list, just it's called a funner name. I like that. Maybe I need a brained up location. And so throughout your term, how long was your term, by the way?
I believe my term was about a year. It was about long, maybe a year and a half.
And did you work with other leaders and volunteers within your crew to create programs and activities, both fun and educational for Scouts, or was it kind of just you?
No, it was definitely a mix of teamwork. Now, at times, I could definitely say certain people took on more roles than others, but I definitely feel like that's in every crew. But at least from my experience, the president of my crew was a large role model for me. I came into venturing with no experience, no idea what I was doing. I brought a suitcase my first camping trip. I was so lost. But they really took me under their wing, taught me the EDGE method of explaining, demonstrating, guiding, enabling. They sharpened my skills as they enabled me to really grow as a leader. And as I planned games, I made mistakes. I learned overall. I made games, I made activities, I made scout skills. Some were great, some were not. And throughout the process, they guided and enabled me to do so, helping me to grow and improve, giving me helpful insight on my ideas.
Awesome. Have you upgraded to a backpack yet, or are you still with your nice suitcase?
I thankfully do have a backpack now. It was a great Christmas present I received, and I'm no longer trying to wheel around a large camp or a suitcase through camp.
I could see that being challenging when you're trying to go through nature and it's just bump, 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 and
It
triggering
definitely
and
was.
stuff. Yeah, yeah, cool. We talked before the show, and you said you were very busy while you were holding this position, or at least at the beginning. And I'm interested how you managed both of your scouting life and other activities that you partake in. Now, you did talk about that brain dump, but could you tell me more?
Yeah. So at first, at least before the training, my general idea was I have 16, maybe 18 hours awake, and the rest I spend sleeping. So if I need more time, I can take more of that time awake. So maybe I spend 20 hours awake and less time sleeping, and I can get more stuff done. I very quickly figured out that does not work. When you don't have sleep, you tend to do a poor job at things, especially when you're half asleep doing them. So what I did was I quickly made changes, and I was too tired commonly, and that was just a problem.
I could see that. I could see needing more sleep throughout the night. I'm glad that you're now getting sleep. Now you have that brain dump and you have all those other strategies that you learned. Scout has to be physically strong. But in case you ever need it, the BSA has a great safety minute on nap safely. So if you ever need it, there's a nap on safely and some guidelines and to help you and your unit be safe when you're napping. Now, not in your case because you have to get your 8 hours of sleep. But if you ever need to pick me up, the nap on safely resources are right there.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. That would have been useful at the time.
I mean, what else did you have to do besides not sleep?
Right.
Do you have more to say on that question?
Well, before the goal setting and time management, as I mentioned earlier, I was the editor of my yearbook. I was also part of 9 clubs in my school, working a part-time job and participating in youth group at my church while trying to run a program at my crew. I was a little all over the place. So even after creating a schedule and a to-do list, there weren't enough hours in the day. I had to make the tough decision of dropping a lot of the activities that I was partaking myself in, specifically a lot of the clubs. And it wasn't easy, but it definitely enabled me to have more time as I cut things out that weren't as committing or as important to me, things I wasn't as passionate about, as I committed myself and more of my time to the things I was passionate about, such as being VP of program, the editor of the yearbook. I found I was able to do my jobs a lot better, and I had more motivation to push myself to do a good job with them.
That saying no is a powerful tool. No, not in a bad way, just being, yes, prioritizing. That's the fancy word to say it. um, Even with that, you had to balance a lot of different things. And when you were coming up with program, do you have a favorite thing that you did?
I definitely think that one of my favorite things with program, at least when planning it, was looking online for resources. I not always the most creative person, but there are other people in the same position that I am in, trying to plan a meeting for a team. And using those resources and then especially adding my own little twist on it could definitely be fun.
That sounds like that sounds like a blast. Is there a favorite activity that you planned that you want to share? Just to
Yeah.
help me and the rest of the venturing population figure out their what they can do. Inspire us here, Logan.
Yeah, definitely. So one of my favorite activities, at least to do with scouts, is the human knot, and that's definitely one that I think a lot of people have used before. But I think there's a lot of lessons that you can tie into the activity itself when doing it. So for those of you that don't know, the human knot, you basically start with holding hands with a bunch of other people, and you're in a knot of trying to unravel yourself from everybody else. And throughout the game, it teaches you, at least those who do it quickly, have to use effective communication and leadership, instructing, hey, this person needs to go here, this person needs to go there, move your arm under there, in order to get yourself basically back into a circle and not a knot. And throughout it, you can really touch on topics such as communication, speaking effectively with one another. Does everyone understand their task and assignment, and working together as a team, being leaders?
I see. That's really cool. And I know that you learned through Human Knot that communication skills, and you throughout your experience you learned about goal setting, objectives for your crew. Make sure you were hitting the mission statement of your crew. How did you make sure that what you were doing, i.e., like planning the Human Knot, or maybe you planned a holiday party or a Thanksgiving party?
Mm-hmm.
How did you use those as tools to ensure that everyone was working towards the same common goal so that we're not like, oh, and human nodding ourselves?
Yeah, definitely. So my advice would be when going into the position, establish a goal for yourself. Make sure you know what you want to do as an individual, as well as what you want to do with and together with your unit. Find a passion. Definitely figure out what your unit wants and what you want, and see where those lines, you meet a common goal.
Right.
Focus on that as the VP of program. You're not alone in your job. You have a lot of people at your side, your fellow VPs and any other members in the crew. Use those to your advantage. You're not the only one who has to plan the program for the meeting. Look to your peers for help.
That's a great point. I was looking at other crews, and maybe you've had this same experience where the VP of program facilitates the program, but they also enable other people to do the program. So it doesn't always have to be you as the VP of program in front, leading the Human Knot, leading all your other games that you like to play. And I was wondering if you had a particularly rewarding experience while you were serving in this position and how that impacted you personally.
Yeah, definitely. So knowing the person I was before, after my term of VP of program, and just seeing how I changed was definitely one of the most rewarding experiences. I came into the position, again, with no scouting knowledge, no idea how to lead a team, and stressed out over my numerous commitments that I had taken upon. But walking out of it, I've become a strong leader, and I can see that I can manage my abilities, plan to manage my time. I got a firm grasp of what the world of scouting is. It enabled me later to just run on for president of my crew, and to begin developing leaders as my president had taught me how to.
That's really cool. Any specific trips or events that you want to talk about?
One of my favorite trips was probably the time we went ATV. It was my first trip. It was below freezing. I can tell you that. My water bottle, I had a little canteen, left it outside for 5 minutes, went to get something out of my tent, came back out, and it was already freezing. That was the same trip I brought my suitcase, but it was the first time I had ever camped. It was the first time I'd ever gotten to go ATV riding. And it was the first time I met a lot of people that I'm still friends with today and consider family in my scouting unit. It was one of my favorite trips because it opened me to the world of scouting, and I'm here 3 years later still doing it.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing. And through your experience, you were talking about family and community. And how did you, later becoming president and as VP of program, foster a sense of community and inclusivity? And what steps did you take to ensure all scouts felt welcome and supported?
Yeah. So going back to that trip where it all started, riding ATVs, we followed all the rules, obviously, but following the BSA and what they've outlined. But through that family that I had made there, the way I felt connected to my individuals, I tried to carry that over into what I made in my program as VP of program. So I tried to establish a family, especially in my term as president. Um, I truly believe everyone's going through something in their life, and I wanted to make the crew an opportunity to escape that, to just not worry about what's going on and have fun for a little bit every week, especially on trips as well. Um, I wanted to follow the guidelines by scouting and use just common sense, include everyone on everything. Icebreakers are always a great way to get quieter groups talking, planning fun activities to keep people engaged, and just finally being there to help anyone that needed someone to talk to or just hang out with.
I'm sure everybody that you interacted with appreciates that. Did you do any recruiting while you were VP of program?
I definitely did a lot of recruiting. And I believe at the time, a lot of the crew was made up from people either in my school or my youth group or people I just dragged out to crew meetings being like, hey, try this once. I promise you won't regret it. And definitely just asking your friend, hey, man, go to one meeting. I promise it's worth your time. Definitely brought a lot of people into our crew.
I see. If you look back on the time that you've been vice president of program within your venturing crew, I'm curious what advice you would have to give someone who is considering something similar, a similar leadership role, or maybe even VP of program in their organization.
So my first tidbit of advice would probably be to plan out your meetings. I personally recommend like an absolute minimum of a week out. Now, I was terrible at this. I commonly found myself, at least the day before, trying to scramble to collect and come up with a meeting idea for the program. Um, and this leads to, I would say, less effective and inefficient. When you plan it a week out, you have more time to reach out to people that you may want to bring into your program.
Mm-hmm.
And you're more confident. You have more time to polish it up along throughout that week. So have an idea of what you want to do and start planning it a week in advance. Another thing I think I would recommend is have your president and other officers review your plan. It's a great use of officer meetings that you plan out and have in advance. It's a great way to ensure that what you're doing is following all the guidelines offers, as well as doing something that maybe everyone will enjoy. You can have an idea that maybe not everyone's on board with, and by having everyone review it, it gets a general consensus of where everyone feels on it. And then finally, I would say use online resources. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but activities and games can be hard to come up with week after week after week. And there are a lot of resources out there that you can use just Googling team building ideas, team building games, stuff like that, scout skill activities. You can find all sorts of resources out there on things that you can do, add your own little twist to it to help improve your team and overall create that family with your unit.
You keep talking about online resources. What's your favorite thing you found that you were able to implement with your crew?
My favorite online resource I found was probably a chair-based game where everyone it's almost like musical chairs, but rather than music, you sing scout songs. And throughout, when the scout song stops, you all switch. And it's a fun chance to see different scout songs and ones you haven't heard. Maybe, go to a different camp for somebody else. It's definitely a fun way to hear different music within scouting.
I haven't heard that one before. And they can take it to all their other scout activities too, I guess, if you learn it together. Interesting. I like how those two activities go together. And as we're running out of time and as we close, I was wondering if you had to give advice to a new venturer or somebody that's planning on running for vice president of program or any other office position, what would it be? What advice would you have?
I've learned that just because an opportunity presents itself, no matter how fun it may sound, if you don't think you have the time to do it, especially the time to do it effectively, to really sink yourself into that, create goals for it, and accomplish them, it might be worth reconsidering. It might not be the best use of your time. Coming from someone who, again, was in 9 clubs and youth group and scouts and working a part-time job, I was doing entirely too much. And it caused for me across the board to just do poorly at all of them. And this is something I still struggle with. I've gotten better at it, but saying no is okay. It's okay to say no to opportunities that you feel, hey, I'm already kind of committed to these other things. I don't want to take on too much. Pick a few things to be great at and go from there.
I like it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. And one other thing, what have you learned that you can apply? So we talk a lot about applying the skills and being prepared for life. Is there anything that you learned that you want to apply to your life, or you found you have been applying as you're applying for colleges?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say that to-do list is a great start. That's something I've used, again, over and over again, and I will use outside of scouting as well, even though I learned it in scouting. And then I would say build a family, especially with later in life. I'm sure I'll go into a workplace and have to work with people. You will always be working with people. Make connections, build a team, work together, talk to one another. Don't try and take everything on yourself. Create that family. I think focus on creating that family and things are going to go really well for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Logan, for your insights and your time coming and sharing your experience with us. And thank you for our listeners for tuning in to this episode of the Venturing BSA podcast, Leading Our Adventures. I can't wait for some of our coming soon episodes. We are going to showcase a Venturer's Path to Summit experience up next. Well, that's all for now. Until next time, stay adventurous and keep leading the way. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.